Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Nice. I have a few ones over here. I mean,
Hi, everyone.
I normally give them a little bit more time. So the one that you see here, this one is Emma. This is Mia Bursley. Uh, this one that says Hugh Gasso. He's another coach called Hugo,
Okay, wonderful.
Florida County. Mitchell Leff. I don't really know who that is. I think it's a guest from Hugo.
Okay.
So that's what I have right now. We're still waiting for more people. So I normally give them about 10 minutes so everybody will show up.
Okay.
One. So there is Laura too.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there, Laura. Hi. So I see Laura, Emma, Mia, Hugo, Michelle, Hugh.
There is Vera.
All right.
So it's getting there.
There you go. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Vera.
Hi.
Emma.
All right. So everybody, this is Miss Vanessa. She's a psychologist and she has very good experience with junior athletes. And we have the opportunity of talking to her and sharing her knowledge about what we have, what she has experienced in the junior athlete world. So in a couple of minutes, once that we had everybody in, we're gonna listen to what she's gonna talk to us. And so I hope everybody has a very good, positive experience with her.
Hey, no.
Thank you.
All right, so we wanna do it same as all the time. Like we wanna put our microphones on mute, and we wanna hear what she's gonna talk to us. And at the end, maybe the last 10, 15 minutes, we'll do a question and answer section. So unless, I mean, an example, Emma, I know you had to leave a little bit earlier. If there is a question that you had to do before we get to the question and answer, you can just raise your hand. We will give you the opportunity to ask your question. All right, Laura?
I'm going to join on the computer, okay?
All right, you have some time, so yes, take.
Okay.
I would like to know who is Michelle.
That's me, Michelle F. from Ventura, California.
Are you with Hugo?
I'm with Victor.
Yes, with Victor. Well,
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so Victor is there with us, right?
I'm right here, guys. And there's also Hugh, which is another one of my students he's from New York, but he's in California right now.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
So yeah, so this is when the academy is gonna join for these kind of trainings. I was trying to join my brother from Guadalajara, but I think he has, because of the time difference, he has some issues on that.
Okay.
Vanessa, she's in Puerto Vallarta right now, so.
I'm not far. I was saying he can just call me and we can chat.
I know,
Yeah.
right? So I wish I was in Puerto Vallarta. It has some beach over there.
Oh, it's so nice. I can't complain.
All right, perfect. So there is Laura back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who am I missing?
There she is.
Well, Laura's back. Who am I missing? There is a couple of guests. So here, and so a couple from my academy too.
Okay, wonderful.
Priscilla is, I don't know where Sydney is. Well, I assume they're gonna join soon. So.
Jesus, you know Leo Lavalle?
Yes, I do.
I trained with Leo.
Yeah, he's very, very popular Mexican player. He has been the Davis Cup captain for Mexico. I think Victor knows him very good as well.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. Very good friend of my dad's, and I played with him. So yeah, he's a good guy and very knowledgeable, obviously.
He's very good. So you play with him, you must be really good as well too.
I played. I used to play, and then I got injured. But yeah, it was some some good times. I was in San Diego, and he would take his team over there, And that's kind of where we started connecting when he would go to California.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the good thing is that you have the knowledge of the both worlds, the psychologist and the tennis part. So
Right, right.
that's how we can get more information out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will. I'm going to try and share from my experience, like, yes, as a psychotherapist, and of course as a player, because it's interesting when you're in a career in psychology, the way that you look at things after. So looking back now at different experiences when I was playing junior tennis, it's interesting. It's like you're able to sort of analyze what actually was happening, and I'll talk a little bit more about that so it makes sense. But there was a lot of things, a lot of I felt certain ways, I reacted in certain ways. I didn't really know why, and it affected the way that I performed, that I played, my confidence, everything. And you can so looking back at that now, it's just interesting to sort of analyze it.
Awesome. Yes, I mean, it's like you say, it's very interesting to see it from both points of views, because it's the completely different example for me when I was a player. Now that I'm a coach, like the two different worlds, and so it's very interesting to hear all that knowledge from both sides.
Exactly.
All right, so we could get started with these people that we have here, and whoever joins after, they're gonna have to catch up a little bit because it's at 5 o'clock, so we cannot be waiting for that long. So if you wanna give him to you, you can feel free to talk to them, and just I hope these guys get the best out of you.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Everybody, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for having me. So my name is Vanessa. I am a psychotherapist. So basically what I do is I work with individuals for many different things. You may hear, a psychologist, you go to a psychologist if you're depressed, and yes, I see people that are struggling with depression, but we also look at sort of everything across the board. So people who just want some stress management techniques, people going through issues in a relationship, and a lot of athletes, because there's a lot of pressure that comes with performance. And when in a sport like tennis, assuming everybody here is in the tennis world, I mean, we're talking, that's, one of there's a lot of sports, but that one in particular, like tennis, is so mental. And you guys know this. It's so working with athletes is it's really fun, and it's crucial to take. I mean, it's like you guys, you train, either you're on the court or you go to the gym, you stretch. Your nutrition is obviously, it's so important, and that directly affects how your mood is going to be as well. But then it's important to take care of your mental health, because I see more athletes come to me because I see more performance struggles, not because of a lack of talent, not because of physical injuries, but mainly there's something holding them back mentally or emotionally. And and usually, if you tools, you haven't developed them. Just like you go out and you you practice your serve for 20 minutes, you have to also work on coping skills for stress, for anxiety. Otherwise, it starts to reflect either on the court or in some way, shape, or form. So anyway, when I'm working with tennis players, a little bit about me with tennis. I was a tennis player growing up. I played junior tennis. I was a player at UNC in North Carolina. And so I played until college, and then I got injured. And I didn't know that my injuries were mainly, yes, they reflected physically, but psychological. And what happened was I had a lot of pressure. I didn't know what was going on, but I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and I see that a lot with players. So I'm gonna, kind of point some things out that I like to focus on specifically when I'm working with athletes. So one of them is focus, and that's one of the most powerful tools in sports psychology. I mean because the ability to focus, and it's an ability that you can develop. Okay, you don't just so you have to again work at it. It's essential to wellness. It's essential to success. So I invite all of you to try and either reflect right now, or the next time you guys are out playing a match, ideally, because match play is one thing, but when you're actually competing, we all know that it shifts. Pay attention. Like, is your mind wandering? Or even when you're training, I mean, are you actually present? Are you actually there? Or are you thinking about what you're going to do later? Are you thinking about that, exam that you need to turn in? So, and several things for focus. I mean, number one, and it may sound, it may sound silly when a lot of people suggest, well, you should have goals, but we establish goals in therapy. And when I work with tennis players, I tell them, like, well, goals are so essential because that helps always sort of keep you focused and keep you grounded. And grounded is basically the ability to stay present. So if I'm very anxious, if I'm competing and I have a lot of anxiety, if I have something to focus on, automatically my anxiety is going to go down, because anxiety feeds upon sort of feeling out of control. Or if you're really nervous in a match, a lot of that anxiety is because the pressure's on and you don't know what's going to happen. When something is predictable, you don't have anxiety because you know perfectly well what's going to happen. So if you have goals structured with your coaches, you have something to focus on, automatically that's going to bring your anxiety down. But in order to do that, you need to know what you need to focus on. So I would suggest to get very clear on your goals. Like I said, focus on what you can control. So we all know this. I don't know, you have a match in, let's say you guys all registered for a tournament in a month. Okay, so you have a month, and when you think about that event, there is so much that's going to come into play that will be out of your control. I mean, you're not going to be able to control, if the other player's nice to you or not, or if it's raining that day, or if, I don't know, you're really nervous. So there's a lot that's out of your control. Practicing and focusing on what you can control. So that's, again, where we sort of go back into goals. What I always recommend that players do as well is, I don't know if you guys, there's a self-talk that comes with sports, especially, and in tennis I see it a lot. I mean, it's like if you're cheering yourself on or something, but having like some cue, words or phrases that you can say to yourself on repeat. And if you can do it, like, start practicing this when you're training. You can tell yourself, like, I don't know, take a deep breath, or relax, or I can do this, or slow down. My father was a professional tennis player, and something that he taught me was when he was playing and he was very nervous, he would go like this, like with his hands. So he would gesture, he would make that like motion to himself to like just slow down. And so I started doing that. And if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, the best thing that you can do, because remember, anxiety comes when I'm feeling, like I said, out of control. So I don't know where this is going to go. But also so I don't know what's going to happen. And then I'm stressed, I'm scared. And what happens is my nervous system, when I'm anxious, when I have anxiety, my nervous system is sort of running like, it's like out of control. So if I can slow down, if I can physically slow down, let's say you're on the court, I always say, well, slow down. Like if you're in between points, it's important to interrupt that rhythm. So if I'm, like I said, I'm really nervous, I'm in the middle of a game and I'm like panicking, but well, then the best thing to do is just to stop, take some deep breaths. What I would do is I would just kind of like grab grab a tennis ball and like hit it against, the fence lightly, of course, but just to sort of create some space, like slow down. If I physically slow down, my mind is going to slow down too. My thoughts are going to slow down. My nervous system is going to regulate. So you guys can actually, there's a lot that you can do to, again, help literally to train or to program your nervous system to respond well under stress, under pressure. So in practice, say some key words to yourself or some phrases like relax, I got this, everything is okay, slow down, physically slow down, walk a little bit. Like nobody says you have to be, rushing. So change the pace. You gotta interrupt that. Focus on what you can control. Do you guys have goals, that you're working towards? What are they? So make sure you're very clear on those. And exposure. I mean, a lot of really what I see in this, so you really, in order to kind of get it, and I keep saying anxiety because that's probably the number one symptom or complaint that I get from tennis players. It's feeling anxiety, feeling anxious, whether that be training, sort of feeling like pressured, but mainly while, during match play. So I had a lot of players come to me that, they were fine physically and in every sense, and they would get on the court. And I had a young lady actually that I worked with recently, and what would happen to her, she didn't know what was happening to her, is she would physically freeze. She would freeze on the tennis court as if she could not move. And so she didn't know what was happening. She was like, I'm blocked. She's like, I can't think. She couldn't remember how to serve. Her parents were panicking because they thought there was something wrong with her physically. They said, well, she can't move. She's not responding. And she was fine. She was fine physically. But what was happening was, again, she was freezing. And when somebody freezes, that's a stress response. So you guys may have heard of fight, flight, or freeze. And so that happens when I am incredibly anxious, and it's like a panic response. So she was so anxious, she had so much anxiety that she was freezing and totally blocked out. So what we had to do with her was, it's so important to expose yourself to whatever it is that makes you anxious. So she was able to get through it. Granted, we, worked together in therapy, but a lot of the thing was just exposure. So I told her, I said, well, how many tournaments are you playing? And she said, I'm playing, one a month. I said, well, then play 4. Without overdoing it, but exposing her to that which made her anxious. So if you're nervous about playing tournaments, then play a lot of tournaments. I would get really nervous when I played against players that I thought were a little bit below my level. I don't know, that again, everyone's different. For me, that was very stressful because I would go into a match thinking, oh, I should win this match. I'm a better player or whatever. So that made me anxious. So what I would do is I said, okay, well then I'm just going to play with a lot of players who I think that I'm at a little bit of a different level. It doesn't matter if so find out, it's like we all have our strengths and we all have our points of, I don't like to say weakness, but we all have areas that need strengthening. So also, it's like, it's like if I would ask you guys, do you know what those are? Do you know where you struggle? Like, because I have people tell me, well, I get nervous when I'm playing. Okay, well, why? What is it exactly? I feel a lot of pressure. Okay, well, what do you feel pressured about? Where is that coming from? Is that you? Is that coming from your parents? Is that coming from your coach? Like you have to, it's like if I'm sick with an infection of some sort and I go to the doctor, well, they got to localize that infection. You got to know where the problem is. So if I'm having a hard time and I'm struggling, but I don't know why, well, then it's going to be very hard to address whatever's going on, because all of these things, when you're just developing confidence, developing, again, focus, concentration, all of these things we can work on and we can improve, and they'll reflect the results will show for themselves, but you have to be able to pinpoint them. And sometimes one of the biggest problems is it would be easily handled or worked through, but people don't really know what is even stressing them out, So again, like I said, saying keywords to yourself. Routine is so important as well. It's like, do you have routine? Do you have structure? Because routine, it's like a funnel. So it channels your focus, and it automatically sort of sets you in a different mindset to compete. So your routines help you maintain your focus. So it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone. If you can develop effective routines and structure, you're already improving your focus, right? So it's not the same if I have a match, it's, on Saturday at, 10 a.m. It's not going to be the same if I go to bed the night before at a reasonable time. I had a good dinner. I wake up early with time. I go to the court and I warm up and I'm there for a little bit and I have some water. I had breakfast. That's very different from the player that, I had a gentleman that I was working with, and he was just, he'd wake up like an hour before and he'd just grab something like on his way out to eat. And so he's eating in the car and he's running, barely making it like on time. So he's already, so you haven't even walked on the court. This is what I would tell him. I said, you haven't even walked on the court and you're already at a disadvantage because you're already stressing, you're not prepared. So practice routine, practice structure. Again, that also gives your mind a sense of control. And like I told you guys, when I give that to myself, my anxiety is going to go down. And what you want to really focus on is stress management, is tolerating anxiety. If you guys warm up, also warm up the same way. Find what works, and whatever works, keep doing that. Okay. Remember, we as humans, we crave security, we crave certainty, and we want structure. So develop something that's effective and keep doing it. Imagery. What are you guys thinking about? I mean, if you have, using the example of having a tournament then the following day, what are you thinking of that the night before? I mean, are you already panicking if you're going to have a hard time, or if you just changed your grip and you're freaking out because, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get a forehand in? Or are you imagining yourself calm, in a good state of mind, focused? And what's most important, what I always tell people, and I think this is so important, is when you're thinking about, let's say, the tournament you're going to play, or something, it's not, you want to really focus on not just thinking through the scenario, but it's like really try to feel it, because the body remembers. So, and I always say, it's emotions are stored in the body. So if I'm thinking about a certain place, a certain tennis club, or I'm going to have a match, and I already know who I'm going to play against because I've played against her before, if I am thinking about that and I am in a relaxed state, or I do something that's relaxing, it's calming, I have, let's say, music on, I'm taking a walk, if I can generate those soothing and positive emotions when I'm thinking about these kind of things, most likely when you're living them, those emotions are going to come back, because those emotions are associated with that. So you want to associate positive emotions with wherever you want to feel well. So, when you think about this tournament, when you think about being on the court, when you think about, imagine yourself doing well, but try your best to create those feelings for yourself. And I can't emphasize this enough, the power of journaling. So the brain is really interesting, but we process things differently when we write them down. So if I have a lot of stuff going on in my head, and I'm not saying, and this is important, because a lot of people like to journal, but they do it typed nowadays, or I know there's like journaling apps on phones. Those don't work the same way. I mean, I'm talking just get a pen or a notebook and pen and a paper and journal a couple minutes, just whatever comes to mind. What are you thinking about? Because the moment that I write something down, automatically I can see it in a different light, in a different perspective. So we want to, it's a way, it's sort of like, when you're exercising and you sort of break a sweat, that's sort of what journaling is doing for your thoughts. Instead of having them all here, you're just kind of releasing them. So that's something that I always, athletes and non-athletes, I emphasize. Confidence. We all know that confidence is incredibly important. So we usually look at that. Like I said, everything that I talked to you guys about right now was like anxiety, emotional, and we, working on targeting your focus and concentration. And then we also have working on confidence that I like to look at. So, you can be the strongest, you can be the tallest, you can be the most powerful, athlete. But if you're not confident in your abilities, it's going to be very difficult for you to reach your goals. So again, just like you guys focus on developing specific skills, and everybody has certain things they need to work on more. Some people need to work on their speed. Some people need to work on their volleys. Some people need to work on forehands. Well, confidence is another thing you want to put in there, because it's usually we don't think about that. We don't practice developing our confidence. People think that that's something that you sort of develop over time in your life, but it's a tool, it's a skill. So it's actually something that you can work towards and improve. It's sort of like if you guys are playing tennis and I don't know, you want to improve your serve, but you're just like, oh, okay, well, it'll happen. That's sort of what we do with like confidence. It's like, no, like it's important to exercise that. So one thing I like to say is, first of all, realize that confidence fluctuates. Okay, so confidence for all athletes, even at the highest levels, it goes up and down. Okay, so it's a state of mind, right? So if you are going through a time in your life and your confidence is pretty low, be easy on yourself, because a lot of people beat themselves up like, I don't feel good and I don't know why I'm struggling. If you're going through something also in your life that's maybe that's challenging you emotionally or that's taxing, it will probably reflect on the way that you feel about yourself. So, focus, as long as you focus on improving, confidence is going to follow suit. But remember, it ebbs, and so confidence isn't like this. It's not right? So it changes, and that's okay. And now what can really help with confidence? So there's several things here. You want to focus on yourself, okay? Because I see this a lot as well with people, and it causes them a lot of struggles, is focusing on others. So, if you guys, for example, if you train together, if you're at a tennis academy and you're training with a bunch of your friends, thinking about, how your teammates are doing, or if you're playing, focusing on, how the opponent. So when I'm looking or I'm focused on somebody else, I'm no longer looking at myself. So it's kind of like I'm abandoning myself. So focus on yourself, on what you need to do to improve, not on anybody else. So that's important. It's like you have to kind of stay with yourself. And if you're playing in an environment or you're training in an environment where there's several individuals, there's probably going to be comparisons and competition, but just remember that at the end of the day, you got to stay with yourself. And so focus on, I spoke earlier about goals, and goals are important. Make them, when you have small, measurable, attainable goals, you're much more likely to enjoy the process of whatever you're doing than having these goals of, in a year, this is what I want to see. No, develop goals for the month and work towards those. Like, so you can enjoy yourself. And when you have success, let's say every day, if you can find something, and this is something that I also invite you guys to try out, is whenever you go to practice, so it's not like the same thing. This is what started happening to me. I started feeling like things started getting like very routine, and it was like the same thing over, and I would go and I would wake up and I'd go practice, and it would be very, I would start to get unmotivated. So develop an intention. When you walk in when you go, play tennis tomorrow, have an intention. Like, what are you going to focus on today? What do you want to get out of that practice? Because there's something, and if you have something, again, you will enjoy yourself more. If you enjoy yourself more, you're going to feel less anxious. If you feel less anxious, like we talked about, you're going to have more focus, more confidence. You're going to be more relaxed. Your nervous system is also adapting. So you create these emotions. You can create these emotions based on what you're thinking. So something that we look at in therapy is that our thoughts directly affect our emotions. Okay, what I'm thinking is going to affect how I feel, and that's going to affect my behavior. So what I do. So if I'm playing tennis, two players can live the exact same situation, experience the exact same thing happen to them, but they're going to live it completely differently. Why? Because it's kind of like, and I always invite on a sheet of paper, writing down these like 4 words. So we have a situation. So something happens, right? There's a situation, and then we have an automatic thought. I'll get right to this in a second. And then we have an emotion, and then we have a behavior. So why are those 4, terms important? Situation, automatic thought, emotion, behavior. Because when something happens, so that's the situation. So let's say I'm playing a match. I won the first set. I'm up 5-1, 40-15. I have, 7 match points. I lose all those match points. And we're in the third, I lost the second set. We're in the third set now. So that's the situation, right? Now, what comes after that, anytime a situation is happening, I'm having thoughts that are coming to my mind automatically. So everybody's automatic thoughts are different. And depending on what those are, that's going to affect how I feel and then the way I respond. So if this happens, right, we're in the third set, I was playing really well, I started getting nervous, I had all these match points, I lost them, I'm in the third set. If I'm thinking, oh my God, here we go, I already lost the match, I can't do this, if I was better, this wouldn't happen to me, I'm so stupid, I'm probably not going to be feeling very well with myself. And so my behavior is probably not going to be ideal. So if we want to change the way that let's say my behavior is, I don't know, I'm nervous and I'm missing everything, or I can't get a serve in. So what I would want to do when somebody would say, well, I don't know what to do if this happens to me, I tell them, okay, so what are your automatic thoughts? So the reason that I'm saying this is, for example, if I work with that player and I say, let's change those thoughts. So we have something called alternative thoughts. I tell them, what could you think to yourself instead? So instead of, I'm stupid, I'm already gonna lose, this is you can say, it's okay, we're in the third set, I can still do this. I just need to refocus. Back to what I told you guys about those like key words to tell yourself. Relax, everything's okay, just enjoy yourself. Already just in saying that, I'm probably going to feel differently, and I'm probably going to perform differently. So again, it's the same situation, but whatever my thoughts are, that's going to really affect the way things play out. So what I invite you all to do as well is, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling really sad, when you're feeling really anxious, when you're feeling pressured, remember, try and think of those terms, like think of this situation, what's happening? Or if you can think right now, if you guys are thinking, you can think of a situation where you were struggling or where you were feeling a lot of stress or really nervous. Okay, well, think about what was happening. What was the situation? And what were you thinking? And And if you can sort of pay attention to that, my invitation would be, you know, like to challenge those thoughts. So if you're practicing tomorrow and you're missing everything and you're probably not telling yourself something that's very nice, catch yourself, and then say something back. Don't just like go with those thoughts, because our mind is so powerful, and our thoughts, like I said, they will affect our emotions and they will affect our behavior, which affects really our life. Answer back. So respond to unhealthy thoughts, respond to these self-sabotaging, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not getting better, I'm gonna lose, I'm so stressed out. Say something different to yourself, you know? So what you tell yourself is huge. And then, you know, another thing that I always like to emphasize is focus, concentrate on the process, not the outcome. So if I'm playing a tournament and my focus is, and granted, everybody likes to win. There's a little bit, there's usually a lot of competitiveness, especially, you know, in tennis and with tennis players. But if I'm playing, you know, it's like we go back to focusing on what your intention is. Like if I'm playing tournaments and I'm just focused on that I'm going to be happy if I get first place or second place, and that's so my mind is focused on that's sort of the goal, that's what I want, I'm probably not going to enjoy the entire process leading up to it. I mean, I've never seen, I think the players that I see are happiest, I mean, granted, they are competitive, of course, but they're not focused on the outcome. They're focused on the process, on playing, on having fun, enjoying themselves. So something that I emphasize a lot too is if you're not having fun, it's like you already lost. Like there's no point. So make sure, like, remember at the end of the day that, you know, tennis is a beautiful sport. I mean, it's incredible, but it's only incredible if you enjoy it. So in order to enjoy it, you have to focus on what you're doing, not on what you want to happen so again, focusing on the process, if you go practice, enjoy yourself, you know, have fun with your teammates, bother Jesus, no, I'm kidding, but have a good time, you know, so, instead of just thinking, oh my God, you know, I need to get first place or I need to win. That puts a lot of pressure, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And focus on what you're doing right. You know, again, tennis is so mental, like I said. So you get to choose. Am I going to focus on where I'm struggling, or am I going to focus on, you know, what I've done correctly? So, and that's sort of just more basic positive thinking. And, you know, this goes for parents and coaches as well. Like, what are you telling your players? You know, where is the emphasis? Is the emphasis on winning, or can they just have fun? And can they just enjoy themselves? And is that being emphasized? Because I see it a lot, unfortunately, with parents of athletes. And there's a lot of pressure sometimes from parents. And it's really unfortunate to see this, because a lot of the times I want to pull the parents into therapy because it's not coming from the player. So if you're feeling stressed out from parents, from coaches, that's worth talking about with them too. So whenever I see a kid that has anxiety, a lot of the time there's stuff coming from the family, or as a kid, maybe my parents aren't trying to pressure me, but I feel like they are. And that's important to talk about, you know, with parents as well. Like the focus has to stay on enjoyment. It has to stay on the process, not getting into this competitiveness. Accepting, you know, if you want to come, like talking about like bouncing back from, let's say, losing streaks, right? I see that a lot as well. Players that come and, I don't know, match after match after, they just lost. And then sometimes we have winning streaks, and then that fluctuates. So it's important when we have a losing streak to accept like failure, or loss as part of that. I mean, that's just part of it. Because if you're fighting against, I don't want to lose, I can't lose, I don't want to lose, that's creating all this, it's like this internal struggle. If you can just accept that that's part of the process of growing as a player, of, you know, moving forward in your career, of life, really, you're also going to have a much better time. So I'm not saying to go out there and say, oh, I'm going to lose, so I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to try, but just accepting it as part of the process. You will have struggles, you will have losses, you know, you will have match points and you will lose those matches. You're going to choke sometimes, but everybody does. So don't get too hung up on, you know, if you're feeling like you're struggling. Like I said, confidence fluctuates. Your performance is going to fluctuate. You know, some days your best is going to look different. That's okay. Can you be flexible to that? Or how, you know, are you being really rigid with yourself? Because there's a lot of perfectionism in tennis as well. I see this too. And so there's a lot of, it's just this like hyper vigilant state of like wanting to do things perfectly. And that can really get us into trouble. You know, it's okay if things change. Things are not ever static. Meditation, anything like that is I invite. Meditation. Do you guys, you know, do you listen to music? Do you do yoga? So calming things for the mind, and those are again just like basic mental health strategies. But yeah, so like I said, if you're struggling, just, you know, try and see what thoughts you're having. And I wonder too, a lot of what we think is not true. So remember, just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. So challenge yourself. If you're having these thoughts, challenge those thoughts. And if I could, you know, just the main things that I would say is, and I can say this as a therapist, but I'm saying it more of as a, you know, former tennis player. I would say if you want to improve your performance in general, number one, you have to be enjoying what you're doing. So you have to be enjoying the entire process, everything that has to do with it. If I'm not having fun, what I told myself, and this is, I told myself, if I'm not having fun, if I'm scared to lose, I'm not even going to walk on the court. It's not worth it. It's not. You know, that just leads to burnout, which is very hard to come back from. So we want to prevent burnout in players. And the way to do that is the moment that I'm feeling I'm really tired, or it's like this feeling of you don't want to go to practice anymore. You're feeling really, really anxious. Also, take breaks. Take a break. You know, my father would always say. He said, you know, don't leave 100% on the court. So what he would mean by that is like save a little bit of energy. So give your all, but don't also, you know, be careful to not overwork yourself, because just like you can overwork yourself to a point of physical injuries, we can push ourselves so much when we don't want to be doing something that mentally we start burning out. Okay, and that's when and what happens is we start getting really depleted mentally and emotionally. And like I said, burnout is it's very challenging. It's not impossible, but it's very hard to come back from. So be mindful also of if you're overtraining. I always say it's better to undertrain a little bit than to overdo it. So just be kind of, you want to be mindful. You want to be practicing and playing with intention, not just going out there and doing something robotically. So I do want to leave some time for questions if you guys have them. Jesus, I don't know if you want me to keep going or.
All right, we can see if somebody has some questions over here that they would like to ask about what their performance in the court. I think about what you mentioned, I can relate a little bit of all of these players that I see here, that I know them pretty good. So I will say they should definitely have taken some good advices from this. So if you want, we can take some questions from here and there, and we can see how we can help answering those parts.
Of course. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Ashley, yeah.
Hi.
Ashley.
So a question just off of your last sentiment. What do you mean by undertrained? Do you mean the mental aspect of the game where you don't want to like physically and mentally just stress yourself out completely? So to take a bit of that stress to alleviate it from entering on a court? What do you mean by undertrained?
What I mean is if you're tired, if you're feeling really anxious, or if you're just if you don't feel like playing, if you haven't had a break in a while, it's better to play less. And then by this I mean like time-wise. Have shorter sessions, have shorter practice sessions if you're feeling really drained, right? So that's what I mean by don't not overdo it, don't overtrain.
Okay.
Yes. So by the way, Ashley is looking to get into a college.
Oh, great.
So we're trying to get her ready for that. And hopefully she's going to be able to join a very good division, hopefully.
That's amazing, Ashley. Good luck. That's an exciting process.
Thank you.
We have Mia here raising her hand to have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so this is relating more to the beginning, but I think a lot of people in here can relate, but sometimes I'm in a match and I'll be losing. And instead of thinking of what I can do to come back and like fix my game or do something better to play against the opponent, I think of like, oh, I'm losing. Oh, the score's so bad. Oh, I'm going to lose this. Oh no, the second set I'm going to be so bad, whatever. Is that what like kind of that situation is like focused on like positive thoughts and think of imagery and stuff like that?
That's a very good question, Mia. So what you just described was those thoughts that you are having, those negative thoughts, those are those automatic negative thoughts that I talked about. So there was a situation going on. These were the thoughts you were having. So that's why writing is really good. And it's as simple as grabbing a sheet of paper, crossing off to make 5 columns. And if you can do this, it can be helpful. So you write, again, the situation. So what was happening? Automatic thoughts, these that you just told me. Then you write emotion, behavior, and alternative thoughts. So emotion, how were you feeling? You were probably not feeling great. And then behavior, what were you doing? So were you struggling? What was happening? And then alternative thoughts. So that's when you start looking at, if you say these thoughts, if you write these thoughts down that you just told me and you look at them, then it's like, okay, then what could you say to yourself instead? Write them down. And then you start training your mind to do that the next time you have those same thoughts. So that's what I meant by like challenging those negative thoughts, because most of our automatic thoughts that we have in any given situation of where there's going to be some pressure or anxiety is not positive. So we have to challenge those thoughts. And those that you described, those are all automatic negative thoughts. And they're not necessarily true. You're already telling yourself you're going to lose, and that's anxiety. We create scenarios that aren't happening.
Okay, thank you.
Was that clear, Mia? You got the idea of that?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Laura?
Sometimes, well, most of the time, I do not think about myself. I think about like others, like out of the court. So it's really hard to focus on like myself and what I'm doing wrong or right. So like, what are some like exercises or tips I can like do to like think about myself and know more about others?
Okay, so this is a good practice that you can do at any time of the day. So first of all, like I spoke about goals a little bit earlier. So write down, explore those. What are your personal goals? And if they have something to do with other people, you already know that you're focusing on them. So make sure they're about, I want to do this. This is what I want to work on. This is what I want to improve. So get really clear on your goals. That'll help you stay with yourself and stay focused. And we go back a little bit to what Mia was saying. If you're noticing that you're playing and you're thinking about, let's say, the opponent, again, that's going to be an automatic thought like, oh, she's playing better than me. So say something else back. Again, instead of, if you have this thought, she's going to play better than me, wait a second, I've trained for this, I'm doing really well, I have confidence in myself, saying affirmations to yourself. So self-talk, how are you talking to yourself? You know, is it positive? Because if we're focused on others, a lot of the times the way that we talk to ourselves isn't going to be very positive, because we're not looking and taking care of ourselves. We're looking out for other people's needs, and we kind of abandon ourselves. So stay with yourself, talk to yourself nicely, focus on what your goals are. And I don't know if you meditate, but I think meditation could really help you, because that's going to help increase your self-awareness. And it's sort of like learning to sit with your own thoughts and create mindfulness. So you could sit, in silence for a couple minutes a day, meditating, just, and focusing on your breathing. That is also going to be helpful. But I would focus mainly on like goal setting and challenging those thoughts when you catch yourself. And this can be in the day, if it happens at school as well, or in other situations. Challenge those thoughts and bring them back. Make sure they're about you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody have another questions? Don't be shy there, because if don't, like, what I can do is, like, I know you all, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some questions for her that are gonna be related to each one of you. I might not say names, but you will know who it is for. Right, Vera? Let's start with you first. All right, so Vanessa. So it's very common in tennis that we practice much better sometimes that we play tennis in tournaments that we compete.
Right.
So sometimes it helps that we can visualize ourselves before a match, and we can see ourselves being positive, being confident, but sometimes there are things, like you say, that you cannot control. Like, let's imagine that happens in a tournament, that I was going to play a tournament, then it got canceled at first, but then in a couple of minutes it got put back together again, when I already put my mindset, like, you know what, it's not going to happen. So I was already kind of like relaxed, forget about it, all of that, and they got put together, and it happened.
Right.
But then for that moment, I wasn't mentally ready there. So how can we do that to get into the mindset? Because that weekend, I did not play good. But the weekend before, I was so mentally ready that I played so good, and I even won the tournament. So it's just kind of like a little tricky mindset area.
So, and then that's a great question. So preparing for like unexpected things to happen, like you mentioned, and like I said earlier, there's a lot most things are out of our control, and what usually happens is we sort of panic. So even, and you can practice this outside of the tennis court, but it's almost like get comfortable with getting uncomfortable. So if there's something, even if it's like a random skill that you're nervous to try, do it. So putting yourself in situations where there's anxiety and learning to manage that is going to help. It's going to reflect when I'm in situations where I have anxiety. So if anybody struggles with like speaking in public, sign up for a class, or put yourself in situations where you're forced to deal with uncertainty in the moment, and you will start to habituate yourself to handle this type of anxiety. In those moments also, okay, so it's like you described, what is so important is what are you telling, again, it's that self-talk. So what were you telling yourself in those moments, so you have to, you guys, it's so important to practice. You need to practice self-regulation. So self-regulate. And if you want to look this up, look up DBT skills. So that's going to get what DBT is, dialectical behavioral therapy. And what that does, basically what that means is that helps us regulate our emotions and our nervous system. So if I can regulate what's going on, I can bounce back much faster, and I can put myself in a certain mindset very quickly, but I need to practice it. So self-regulation basically means when I'm feeling, stressed or panicky or nervous or scared, I am able to sort of talk myself into a good steady and stable place. So there's tools for that, and DBT can really be helpful. So I think practicing these kind of skills to self-regulate is probably going to be most important. And again, put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable, because that's really going to help in general for your mental health. That'll be highly beneficial.
Okay, thanks so much for that. I have another one that she's gonna know for who is that for. Like as soon as I tell it, she's gonna recognize what I'm talking about. So what happens is that either she's in a practice or in a competition, whatever it is, what happens a lot is that she demands too much on herself, that if she's not able to achieve the goal that she has, let's say that I want to hit that ball crosscourt and I want to get into that particular area that maybe I miss it for a little bit, then it wasn't part of the plan. So it was like she's already kind of like very expressive, but in negative ways. So she's very expressive with her face. She's very expressive with her body language. I can see her doing faces right now. You can see who that is. So basically,
I won't say anything.
I didn't have to say it. She's already saying it for herself. So basically, and sometimes she throws the racket and stuff like that. So basically, some negative reactions that it doesn't really matter that the reaction by itself. It's just like sometimes that negative reaction, it gets carried away for a couple of points extra after it happens. So it's just not the reaction by itself. It's just like it affects for a few points after. So if it was only in a 15 love, then just because of that negative reaction you had, you're not gonna be good to start good, fresh until the 40 love, which you lost a couple of extra points for that.
Right. Okay. So my advice for you on that would be, so I mentioned earlier, sometimes when we get locked into either a stressful mindset or a negative mindset, it's sort of like we're kind of on this loop. So we're sort of kind of automatically, we're reacting. So what you described to me, you're reacting emotionally. So if I throw the racket and then I throw the racket again and then I scream and then I say something, so that's not responding, that's reacting emotionally. And what I want to do is we have an emotion and then we have a space. If we can create space, we can respond. But if I don't create any space there, I'm just going to be reacting to any emotion or anything that brings up emotions for me. So in order to create, like I said, this space so you can respond and choose differently, with more intention, with more mindfulness, slow down. So that's when I always say, take a break, or don't, if you're in between points, slow down, like do something so you can sort of reset. It's almost like if you're kind of, I don't know if you guys have ever, well, you guys are, I think most of you are too young to drive, but for those that have driven, if you're driving and you kind of zone out, and before you know it, you're at a destination, but you're like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention. The way to sort of that's what happens with negative thinking and negative reactions. We sort of just start doing things on autopilot. So I would tell that person, take a different drive to work, break routine. Our minds get locked sometimes into like this obsessive pattern. So slow down, or sit down for a second, of course, so you want to, like I said, break that routine. And something that I would suggest too, based on what you were saying, Jesus, as well, is I would ask you, more importantly, are you enjoying yourself? Because if you're angry, or if you're upset, or if you're frustrated, I'm wondering how happy you are. Like, first of all, do you really want to be playing? And if you do, well, that's awesome. But if you don't, take a break. But if you are, and you're just kind of struggling with these negative thoughts, remember, that the goal here is to have fun, enjoy yourself. Like tennis, as I said, it's a beautiful sport, but if you're not enjoying yourself, then it can be it can be miserable. I've seen a lot of players that are great. They're great players, but they absolutely dread or they hate every moment. So make sure that you're enjoying yourself. Are you pressured? You know, are you feeling pressured from somebody? A lot of the times we put pressure on ourselves. That's what I would do. And that's why I struggled with burnout in college. I was so anxious playing, and I was so stressed out because I wanted to maintain the scholarship that I had. And I have two sisters that were also on the team. So it was this whole competitive thing going on. I was so anxious that instead of remembering like, hey, this is a sport that I've played my whole life and I've trained for this and I love in not losing the scholarship and not losing the match, that I started getting really drained and really tired, and then I started hating tennis, which was, you know, very unfortunate because again, it's such a great sport. And so after college, you know, I didn't touch a racket for several years because I was like, I no longer associated tennis with good feelings and good emotions. So that's really important too. It's like, when you're playing tennis, do you associate it with good things? Do you have these like nice feelings, or do you think, oh my God, like, I don't want to go, I don't want to play, I don't like it. So that's so important. Like if you don't enjoy something, there's absolutely, I think that's the moment where you should sort of take a break. So, you know, and if you're feeling pressured, like I said, are you pressuring yourself, or, you know, it's important to be honest. Are you feeling pressured from your coach? There's a lot of coaches that put pressure on people without knowing. There's a lot of parents that put pressure as well. So, you know, are your parents pressuring you? Are they saying things that are just not helpful? It's fair to say something to them like, hey, like, I love you, but this is not helpful. You know, this doesn't help me. So, and in junior tennis, I mean, parents, I've seen parents really get into it, and it's not pretty. You know, it's like a drama show sometimes. So, you know, so yeah, I would invite you guys to talk to your parents too if you feel stressed out in that regard. Remember that you're playing tennis yes, I know you're competing and you want to improve, but you're playing it because you love it, and if you can hold on to that, you're going to enjoy it for a long time, and you're going to play better if you're happy, if you're enjoying something. So remember, this isn't a chore, you know, it's not supposed to be something that causes you anxiety. So if you're feeling like anxious too, then, you know, step back a little bit, but have fun in practice. Like I mentioned, set intentions. So think about something fun that you can get out of a practice. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to get 50 forehands, you know, in down the line. Like, no, you know, make it something fun. You're there anyway, so you might as well enjoy yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, then, you know, I would say don't even, like I said, don't even be there. If I knew that I did this at a different time in my life. I was much happier playing tennis when I told myself, the moment that I'm not having fun, I'm not even gonna play. I'm not gonna walk on the court. And so keep it fun, keep it enjoyable.
All right. I just have a couple of questions, and that's okay. And then we can wrap it up if that.
Of course.
So it's one for somebody else and one for me.
Okay.
So this one is from two of these girls that I've seen here. Basically, sometimes it's basically the opposite of what the one I just asked you about, the body language being very expressive, so that. These two are like not too expressive. Basically, you don't see them very intense in the course. Sometimes it's a little bit like kind of like slow a little bit. You see like she looks like tired. Like I sometimes I have talked to her a little bit, maybe try to look for some intensity, maybe just kind of like staying your feet moving, like just kind of like creating more intensity in the court, and just sometimes being a little bit more reactive. Like sometimes like maybe make me know that you care about it. It's not just
Right.
like you make a shot and nothing happened. I'm going to the next one. So kind of like just so I can know that you actually care, that you did made a mistake or something like that. Doesn't have to be all the way to the extreme like the other one had did, but at least a little sign that you're trying, or maybe like a little you make a good shot, like a little come on or something, like you're trying to fight back, right? So I believe, I don't know you, but I believe that has a lot to do with what the motivation is.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I was going to say there is, is she motivated? So is she, because you got to look at, is it a question of confidence? Is it a question of like I talked about, kind of localizing a problem when there's an issue? So is it her confidence? Is it her motivation? Is it her energy? Is it that she's just not enjoying herself? She's stressed out. So what is it that's going on? So when the player is like starts sort of shutting down, or they're quiet, or they're more reserved, you want to know what's happening. So it's like, what are you thinking? Because I've seen players that are very reserved and they're just like, well, no, that's just my style. And there's others that there is something going on, right? And they can do things to help themselves feel better. So again, self-talk is going to be important there. Or like you said, like moving your feet, that automatically sort of gets you that gets you kind of going, like, jumping up and down, moving your feet, pumping yourself up, saying things to yourself. So it's like you got to sort of got to be your own advocate in those moments. And yeah, motivation. So motivation, like I said earlier too, it's directly tied into what my goals are. So maybe she needs something different to focus on, or something to kind of, yeah, I think if she can have like a fun, achievable goal that she can focus on, that can change also her experience, because maybe she's kind of either bored or unmotivated, and we sort of lose motivation when we feel like we don't really know where we're going, or things have felt sort of the same for a little bit. So maybe changing something up for her, changing some goals. I would sort of make it a little more spontaneous, make it more fun.
Yeah. And the last question is that this one is basically coming from me.
Yeah.
And this is from the point of view as a coach, from the kind of work that we have been doing the last couple of time sessions that we have been in a Zoom. We have done 3 sessions, if I'm correct, about emotional intelligence.
Great.
So which I believe is a very interesting aspect, especially if they can learn at this young age. So because I didn't get to learn that and apply that until I was a little older. So for that moment, I was already almost out of tennis, which I have been kind of able to use it towards my coaching part. But is there something that you can tell these girls about emotional intelligence, about how it can be useful for them?
It's a very good question. It's a very good point to bring up. So emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is basically, it's the ability to understand, okay? So to know myself, to understand and manage. So this is where the DBT skills will help. It's the ability to understand and manage my own emotions, okay? And to know how to separate from others, from other people. So it has 2 components there. One, it talks about my own ability to manage myself, and can I separate from others? So I think maybe it was Mia that mentioned earlier about focusing on others. So if she can work on her emotional intelligence, that's going to really benefit there, because a lot of people carry other people. If you're sensitive, you're probably going to carry other people's emotions. You're going to sort of absorb some of that, and it's important to not take that on. Like, you have to know what you're feeling and get really clear on that to be able to separate from other people's thoughts, other people's feelings, because that can easily sort of, let's say my mom was really stressed out and nervous, I could be picking up on that, and that's reflecting on my own performance. So I have to know what's mine, what's hers. So like I said, so that's emotional intelligence. And people with a high degree of that know what they're feeling, okay? They know what their emotions are. And they're also aware of, like I said, in like the columns of their behavior and how their emotions affect others. So it's really just knowing yourself, knowing how you react emotionally, and being able to regulate. So a lot of this it does take practice. That's why I see players like for therapy, because like I said, these are things that we work on. It doesn't just happen on its own. But if you can, put some tools into place that we talked about, it's like any muscle that you're strengthening, but you have to keep working at it, in order to develop it.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody has any other question? I mean, I completely understand that it will be much easier to ask her questions if you were into a one-on-one session with her. But it's the same way as she mentioned that try to be comfortable by being uncomfortable. So
Yeah, exactly.
if you can get to manage making a question here when all your teammates are present, that will make you be a stronger person because you were able to get that out, not just in a private way. So please go ahead. I mean, we're not going to have her for that long. So if you have any concerns, maybe a little bit more personalized in your own, it doesn't even have to be about tennis. You can use it in something else. Like, please be happy to share. And nobody else is going to join, is going to judge. So she's just trying to help here. All right. So anybody else have a question?
I just had one comment.
Okay.
Hi, it's Michelle from Ventura, California. I'm sitting in the house right now. Victor is my coach. I really like him a lot. He's a lot younger than me. I'm a lot older than him. And he has a lot of emotional intelligence. And he keeps telling me it's mental, mental, mental. And I want to win so bad, even though I don't really play totally competitive. I'm just like USTA, or when I practice doubles, which I play a lot, I just want to win. And when I want to win, everything goes out the door because I want to hit the ball so hard. That's all I think about, like the pro. I want to hit the ball so hard that it gets out so much stress for me, but the exact opposite I have to do, and I have to learn not to do that. And a lot of this here is like that emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It applies to life. Victor and all these other guys, these young people, they all have this emotional intelligence. Us older people, I'm only speaking for myself. I got a lot of baggage. I got a lot of injuries. So I carry on the court a lot of problems. But what you said is really crucial. And I'm going to end it. I just really like the way you had this seminar set up. I really like it. And the one point I want to make that I'm just going to say, it's got to be fun. And when you keep it fun, it doesn't matter if you can play in competitive, you will start to relax. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle, so much. Yes, I think you touched on what I would say is probably the most important thing. If you have fun, you're absolutely right. You will respond positively. So like I said about self-regulation, if I'm really stressed out, then start, put yourself, act as if is a huge therapeutic tool. So act as if you're having fun, act as if you're winning, act as if you already won, act as if you're confident, and your thoughts and emotions will follow. So that's a really good point. And you're most welcome. I'm so happy that we were able to do this.
All right. Yeah, that's a question.
I just have a comment. I just want to say thank you because I learned a lot today. And also, I usually think about the future when I'm on the court, but I've been taking notes, and I think I'm going to read those before I go into a match. So.
All right.
Good.
So, and I'm a little jealous because you learn from her and not from me.
No, Mia, and what you said, when you're thinking about the future, to me, that's anxiety. So, focus on managing anxiety. So things that help you relieve stress, because if I'm focused on the future, that is what anxiety is. So bring yourself back and tell yourself in that moment, hey, what's actually happening right now? Because it looks like you're already thinking about losing or that you already lost. And it's like, bring it back. Tell yourself, no, what is actually happening right now in this moment? So don't let your mind kind of wander. Bring yourself back.
Mia, when I can let you join my Zooms again. All right. Victor, do you have any comments or questions that you have?
Well, I actually just want to say thank you for letting some of my students join. One of them had to go early, and he texted me. He really appreciated it. So, I mean, I really like how you touched some important points according, tennis, aspects in life, everything, because I try to touch some pointers with my students, but it's not always as precise as you, that you know more about the subject. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much.
And I think we talk, Vanessa and I, we talk a little bit about what's coming in the future. And we've been talking a little bit about making a little seminar about with the parents, what the role is with the parents. I think that would be an important one to have. So if she's okay with that, we will try to put that together so we can help the parents to understand what is the role as a parent of a tennis athlete, because there might be some confusions there in the role a little bit sometimes. And so that will be a very interesting one to have. If we do manage to have it, I would like you all to be part of it. And even though we bring some more people towards these seminars that we can put together.
I think that would be a great idea, and I'm more than happy to assist in any way possible, of course.
All right, is everybody okay with that? Everybody has questions, or that's it? Laura.
About the parents thing, like my mom doesn't speak English. Like, how would it work?
Yo hablo español.
Oh.
Talk some Spanish as well. I could talk to her like separately if she would want that as well.
Okay.
I think your dad speaks English, no?
Yeah, but he's not really confident on like understanding it that well. Like,
No, okay. Yeah, so you don't. Maybe we can do a separate session with them and something like that. I don't know. We can manage to do it. It wouldn't be a problem. All right, everybody. Then thank you everybody for joining. I hope you got some good pointers from here. So if you have any questions or that you want to do a little bit more private to Vanessa, I can also share her email address with you, and you can feel free to send some questions for her.
Yep. Whatever questions, comments you guys have, if you're struggling with something, feel free, email it my way. I'd be more than happy to chat with you guys. And yeah, if anything's going on regarding tennis or outside of tennis.
I will put a little condition for that. Tomorrow in the practice, you can do 2 aces. I will share your email address with her. If don't, no, that's it.
All right, so
All right.
I'll know who hit aces then.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. So bad the other ones, some of them they had to leave early, and some of them they couldn't make it for other reasons. But I will be happy to share the information here. And you have some notes that you want to share with your teammates, that would be amazing. All right,
Thank
everybody?
you so much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get some
Thanks,
aces so
guys.
I can hear from you.
All right, see you guys. Órale, papá. Nos vemos.